Hello, hello, hello. It's Talk Therapy. I am Tara T. Stallings.
And I'm Melody Manning. How y'all doing this evening? How y'all doing this evening?
Look, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're going to work it out tonight.
Yes, we are, because it's a whole production. It's
Yes.
a production. Y'all don't realize it. But it's a whole production that goes into this.
Yes.
So I'm kind of excited about tonight. We've kind of briefly touched on this in the past, but tonight we kind of really going into it, talking about the standard situation, over 40 for women. Well, basically anybody. We may have some viewers that are under 40, and it's the same across the board, really.
I think so. Yes, I think so, because standards are standards, whether you are young or old. We just really need to talk about it, because it's some things that happen, situations, and we need to really talk about it. And how do you keep your standards? Because, of course, the title is "It's Hard Keeping Your Standards." But of course, that was just a joke. It can be hard for some people. It can be hard. It can be hard for some people, and for some situations, not just people that have real high standards, but some, depending on the situation, it can be very difficult.
It's a learning process. It's a process of growth.
Yes.
Because when you talk about standards, it's just not those lists that we make and how we treat, but that thing called self-esteem is tied into your standards. So if you don't have a healthy self-esteem, your standards may be off. So the first thing you need to look at is your self-esteem.
Yeah, definitely. You and I are over 50.
Yeah.
And we both been married.
Yes.
And I just decided to start that baby. Just to start. But I have in the past. And I just said I wasn't doing it anymore. But I've had, some of the conversations when we talk about standards and keeping your standards and what are standards. I remember having a conversation with a young lady. Matter of fact, it was at a seminar, and she was a young girl, and we were talking about keeping standards, and she said everyone in the room was talking about, yeah, I have standards, but she said this, and I want you guys to really listen to this. She said, I have standards, but they change depending on the situation. So I said, if you have standards, how are they changing depending on the situation?
Now that's a good one.
Exactly. So it puzzled me. So for me, that means she did. For me, I took it as you really don't have standards. You kind of just fit into the situation.
Yeah.
You just fit into whatever's going to work for you at that moment, and that's not really a standard.
Which can cause you to settle.
Which can definitely call you to settle and repeat cycles in relationships.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Because your standards aren't fixed.
Right.
And when you're going depending on the situation, to me, you're settling because, okay, I may like this situation and I'm going to bring it home. Let's think about, I want this. I want this guy, but really he did, but I want it. And sometimes we can want some things that may not be for us, be the best for us, but because we want it, we just want it, even though it's not the best for us, we'll let go of some stuff. And then later on, we'll look back and be like, why did I do that?
Been there, done that.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. Been there, done that. And with the standards, I think maybe what we need to do is maybe let them know exactly what standards are.
I think so.
Because
I think that's exactly what we need to do. Because most people don't, and that's why I made share that story, because most people don't know what standards are.
And they get it confused.
Exactly. That's why she made that statement. The young lady was able to make a statement. She has standards, but they change depending on the situation. And that's not a standard.
And I'm a venture to say this: when men hear the word standard, sometimes I think they associate it with finances and your high maintenance and whatnot.
Okay.
When it comes to, oh, her standards are high, they associate it with high maintenance, but that's not what
That's
it
a
is.
standard. No.
That's not a
No.
standard.
No.
So I think we do need to talk about what a standard is.
Yeah.
That way, when you go after the show, if you find yourself thinking about it, you know, because like I said, it is a learning process. It's a growing process.
Mhm.
You'll know where to start with making your list, developing your standards, setting your goals so you'll be in your standards.
Right. And you have to have values before you can have standards.
Gotta have
before you
values.
can set a standard, you have to have a set of values
Mm-hmm.
before you can have standards. And a lot of times people don't have they standards are not firm because they don't know their values. They're not still in value. So go ahead and let's tell our audience what's the standard, because a lot of people don't really know.
They really
we
don't.
hear words. A lot of times what I have noticed with people is people hear words and they take those words and they run with them, but they really don't know the meaning of the word, or the word has no value to them because it's just a loose word.
Yeah, it is a loose word. Well, standards are how you treat yourself, how you treat other people, and how you treat yourself will set the tone of how you expect others to treat you. So when we speak of standards, and as far as dating or either just regular relationships, you know, with your friends, with family, with co-workers, business partners, clients, anybody, this can come into play. It is how you expect to be treated. And all of that is based on how you treat yourself. So if you're good to yourself, people will recognize how you treat yourself, how you carry yourself, and not just so much how you carry yourself, but how you handle business as far as your health, your finances, your day-to-day lifestyle, and also your spiritual lifestyle. All of that comes into play with your standards. And if they see that you are involved, invested in it for yourself, then it's going to also determine how people come to you, deal with you. So that when I say it's a learning process and a growing process, because when you develop those standards, it can be a lonely place sometimes, because some of the people that have been with you from the beginning, some of those relationships, when they see you start treating yourself differently, either they're going to go with the flow or either they are going to go.
Exactly. So true.
So true. You know, once you develop that standard for yourself, it's going to say a lot. That's why I say it's a growing process and a learning process.
Yes.
And it's all in how, you know, you treat yourself.
Exactly. I agree with you totally. Totally. So let's talk about, why would it be so hard to keep standards? So often, so many people, women and men, because we have men that are listening, that find it hard to keep standards. And you said something about when men think about standards, just talk about high maintenance. But I think that's true. I agree with you totally. But I just, what comes to my mind is when we're talking about dating and men, they have certain requirements. I'm gonna say requirements, which is standards. They have certain requirements that they look for in a female, or in a or in a wife, someone that they want to marry. They have have certain requirements, and I don't care how great of a person you are. If you don't meet those requirements, they will let you go because you're not meeting their requirements. You have so many men. You have men that will not date women with children. That will not date women with children. Period. You have men that won't date women that's in a certain tax bracket. You know, you have men that won't date women that are a certain size, or a certain shade, skin tone. he wants a certain body type.
Yeah.
They won't date certain women, period. And that's a standard. Now, it may be superficial. You know what I'm saying? It may be a little superficial, but it's not to them. That's their standard.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, you have women that have certain standards that thanks. Because for me, I won't date a man that has little children. I'm not dating a man, period. If he has a child that or children that he has to that are little children or middle school. Now they're in high school about to graduate. That's cool. Mm-hmm. But little kid, I'm not dating a man with a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old.
And I can understand that because at our age, our children are older. Mm-hmm. So basically, if you get a man and he has a young child, when you marry that man, you're marrying a child. You can't. Just like women, we expect the man that we marry to marry our children. Mm-hmm. It goes both ways.
Exactly.
So when you marry a man with a young child, you're becoming a mama all over. Of course, you may have some older stepchildren and you're mama to them, but it's a difference when you have that smaller one. Mm-hmm. Because I always think, I'll get up and say, hey, let me go run and do this. And then I got to think, oh, I got to pack a bag. I got to get a car seat out,
Yes.
You got to make sure they snapped in versus, that high schooler. Come on, let's go. We get ready to ride.
Exactly.
He can open the door for himself.
Exactly.
Those are different things. So I understand it. And I don't think that's a flaw. I understand where you're coming from with that because it is, something to really think about how you want your lifestyle to be. Yes. And that's a standard that you have set for yourself. Now, and with this, when you develop standards, let me say this, when it comes to dating right quick, before we get into the meat of stuff, when you set your standards, you will be able to tell those men up front if they're willing to meet your standards or they are not your standards. Now, it's up to you, not up to the man. It's up to you if you are going to uphold and stand firm in what you believe. Because I'm a firm believer. There are many men that want to lay a woman down, but there are very few that will stand you up.
I like that girl.
Come on. So you'll be able to tell those that want to lay you down, and you say, okay, well, we 50. Yeah, we 50, but you still have some men boys. And I'm gonna be honest. The reason you have a lot of men boys because there are so many women that have not set those standards and that are bending and not firm in them. That men will try to see where you at, and that's why a lot of times when you lower your standard and it don't work out, and then he get with Mary Jane. And he done married Mary Jane, and you sitting there like, what happened? I was doing this and I was doing that. Wait, you stepped out. He knew you were one of those. He could lay down, but he didn't want to stand you up. Yeah. So that's the importance of having standards, lady.
Can I share something? While you said it, I remember her name was. I want to say it was an old sermon. It was an old sermon, and she was divorced. She was dating this bishop, and they were dating. They were espoused to get married. Her husband her husband had died. They were older, and they had been dating, and they were espoused to get married. And I remember she told this story. Now, these are church folks. Let me just, for the church folks. But I think this is what she said was true for everybody. And they had not had sex. They went to a different state because his mom was sick. And he got her a hotel room. Now, mind you, she had been married for a number of years. Her husband was dead. I don't know how long they had been dating, but they weren't intimate. So she said he was at the hotel, and they get ready to go, and he was kissing and whatever. You know how you kiss or whatever. And she was like, you know. And she thought about it, and she said he stood at the door. He said, "You sure you want to do this?" She said, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, "You sure you want to do this?" And she said she wanted to do it, but something in her told her no. And she did. She said, "No, we're not going to do this." Even though they were engaged to get married. And later on, he told her this: "Had you had sex with me, I wouldn't have married you." And they were engaged. Wow. He said, now he was going to have sex with her. He was going to have sex because he's still a man.
Yeah, he's still a man.
Bishop or no bishop. He was going to have sex with her. But he told her that had she had sex with him that night, he would not have married her. And the reason for that, because if you do it with him, you did it with everybody else. And he had a certain standard he was looking for in a wife. Even though they were engaged to, had a set wedding date, he wasn't going to marry her. So it kind of goes back to us. Is it hard keeping your standard?
It can be.
It can be hard because she said, because naturally, her body was doing what it wanted to do. She had a desire for him. They were engaged. They probably were kissing. He getting ready to go, and she was like, and he looking like, things going on. However, and he being a man, and he told her, "Hey, you sure you want to do this?" And if she would have said yes, he would have had sex with her, but he would not have. He'd have laid her down, but not stood her up at that altar.
Wow.
And she would have been wondering. So often, when we think about standards and we think about men, their view and our view is totally different.
Yes.
And so often I know, especially with just women in general, we believe, because I've heard this conversation so often, if I don't have sex with him, it may end a relationship. But if you don't have sex with him and it end a relationship, deuces.
Yeah.
Let end it. End it. That means he didn't want to stand you up anyway. He just wanted to lay you down. His basis was, I just want to lay down. And if that's what he wants to do, and some women just want to lay down. They don't want to be stood up. They want to be laid down.
Just be laid down.
So yeah. So
just be that.
Just be that.
If that's what you want, then just be that. But then be clear on that.
That's all you want.
You have to be clear. And I always think this: if you have a woman that's okay with just being laid down, and with that means, because God designed us to be emotional creatures. You detached from your emotional side, that side that God designed you to be. That can be a scary woman to me. A dangerous
woman.
Yes. That could be a dangerous woman.
Very dangerous.
So sometimes when you hear men talking about she done bust my windshield, set my those are some of the things, Now that's not the case with all women that do that. But sometimes it can lead to those things. That's a dangerous woman. Yeah. Men are more apt to do that because they're logical creatures. What seems logic to them may not be logical. Yeah. But they're logical.
And the way they think are totally different. Yeah. How they think about sex is totally, how they think about dating and sex is totally different than women think about it. And their motive is wrong. Not wrong, but it's different.
It's different. When you said, why is it so hard to keep our standards, I think women are faced with that problem because we're constantly hearing there's a shortage of men. And then we're also looking, if you're a woman 40 and above, and if you're not married, don't have a prospect in sight, you get nervous.
Is there really a shortage of men? Because I see a lot of men out here, a lot of people getting married. Is there really a shortage of men? Or it's just a lot of sorry men out here? Or it's a lot of men boys out here?
I think it's a lot of men boys.
Because I don't know if there's really a shortage of men. I think we just...
There's a lot of men boys. And then I think too, women, we consider ourselves particular, but then you have to also think men could be kind of particular too. You know, so when they're playing and stuff, they're playing with women that are allowing them to play. You know, and when he comes across that woman that, you know, if he want her, because men are changed for what they want. You can't change a man, but a man will change for what he wants.
Yes,
So, and if you what he want, he gonna stop his plan. But then again, we get caught up, you know, women, we got to learn how to date like men. You know, we don't date like men.
and there are a lot of women that want to get married, but they don't. But yet they still live a single life.
Yeah,
But that's a whole nother show.
You gotta have, you even have to have standards in that.
Yeah,
how you live your single life.
If you're trying to get married,
You know,
you have to live a life like you married.
because that word says he that finds
a wife, not a girl.
Wife,
yeah,
a wife,
so
not a girlfriend.
Not a girlfriend.
So that means you got to be a wife before you get married. And
Amen.
that's all in how you carry yourself and your standards, you know.
That's right.
But that's a whole nother show.
Whole nother show. Yeah, that's another show.
That's a whole nother show. But I think we have to get past hearing that there is a shortage of men. Now, and if you can't find a man in your particular race, I say open the door.
Go to another race.
Yes, you know. Because there are men, you know.
I guess I could find me a dark Hispanic man. They have black Hispanics. I like darks. Maybe I can find a black Hispanic man. Maybe so.
And even with our standards.
Puerto Rican. Something.
Or African.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I don't know about Africa. But go ahead.
I'm sorry, y'all. I mean, we have to get to a point. Set your standards and date like men. And when I say date like men actually date.
They do.
And when it comes to the dating, we as women sometimes we get it confused. And you know, with the whole dating thing of committed relationship, because it's levels to everything.
Yes.
You know. So, you know, dating is just that dating. I'm seeing if I like you before we move into a committed relationship. So you could be dating 3 men, basically, because that's what men do. Typically, they'll date 3 women.
Or more.
Yeah, or more.
But that's
more. But
that's being honest.
Yeah, and being honest. But you should be able to be honest about it.
We're dating. Define what dating. Well, I like to use the word courting because, and for whatever my reason is, but define what you're doing. But a lot of times I find it, just maybe it's me, I found that women and men find it difficult in defining what they're doing. I'll give you an example. If you go on, you meet somebody and you like them and y'all just hanging out and you're seeing each other a lot, define what are we doing? Are we dating? Are we dating and we seeing other people? What are we doing? So you have a clear definition. So many people get scared to have that conversation because, well, now I want you to see other people. You don't want me to see other people, but you're seeing 3 other people. And
men can be that way.
Right. Or because they think you're having sex with somebody else. So you have, and it goes back to your standard. Well, no, you may not want me to see anybody else, but I'm going to see other people because we're not married, and we're not committed. And to be honest with you, I believe, this is just me, if we're not married and we're not in a committed relationship, I have the right to see whoever I want to see when I get ready to see them. Now, if we are in a committed relationship, thinking about marriage, then I'm not going to see anybody else. But if we're not in no committed relationship, I'm going to see you, Joe, Fred, Bernard, Kennard, Sam, Felipe.
Yeah. Because I feel like if a man does not want you to see other people in, step up, take the relationship. Because most of the time, as women, we're waiting on the man to take the lead in a relationship.
That means put a ring on it, put a promise, put a look at here, I want to marry you. In 9 and 15 years.
Yeah. Not 5, 6 years.
Not 5, 6 years.
Yeah. You don't want to be a 5-year girlfriend.
Right. Right.
or fiance, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
But, set that standard. Know what you want in a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And how you know what you want in a partner. Look at how you treat yourself.
Yes, definitely.
And then I always say to people, find out what your love language is. Do the research. Do you like gifts? Do you like affirmations? Do you like the time? What is your love language? Because even though your love language may be different than his, most of the time, it do. Opposites attract. You could both have the same love language, but if his is different, you'll know what his is. He'll get to learn you.
Definitely.
And then he'll know what yours is. But if you all over the place and don't even know where you are, how can you expect your partner to know what you are in the midst of all of this? So take the time to learn yourself. Say, hey, I like gifts. Are you constantly buying stuff for yourself and say, hey, I done gifted, I deserve this? You may be a person that like gifts.
Definitely.
Do you like to hear from other people you're doing a good job? Because a lot of people, that plays a very important role in their lives. Are you that type of person? Do you handle business? Do you are you making sure your finances are straight? Are you making sure your bills are all taken care of in a timely manner? Do you know how to handle business? All of these are part of standards. Do you keep your home nice, organized and clean? Because that's a standard.
Yes, it is.
Because
and that can have a lot of arguments.
That can have a lot of argument. So later when you go to these men's house, because a lot of times you'll have men that like to boast. I got a house. Well, honey, let me see what your house look like. Pay attention. Is his house in disarray? Do he have clothes stacked everywhere? Is he got 2 weeks worth of dishes in his sink? All of this is important because if you lower your standard on that, just realize you accepting him being there, and you then have to take care of all of it. Because if you can't expect him to say, well, you know what, I got her now, so now you have to pay attention to what people are doing before.
However you meet them, it's going to, when y'all get married, it's going to increase. Or if y'all dating, however you meet that person, it's only going to increase. It's not going to decrease. It's going to increase.
They're not going to change overnight. To you think, oh, I marry him, he's going to do all this, and no, he's going to do what he's doing now.
Same thing.
Yeah.
If he's not a clean person, he's not going to be a clean person when you get married.
And you may be okay cleaning up behind
and you may be.
It's different strokes for everybody, but just be honest with yourself and know that. But if you have a standard of you like cleaning, you don't want to clean up behind somebody, then you may not want to budge when you see that you don't clean
or have
up.
a conversation.
Yeah, have a conversation.
He may be willing to, change some ways or make create a happy medium.
Yeah,
but those are things you really need to look at. You need to pay attention to.
Yeah, they're very important. Do you like to go out? He might be a homebody. Are you constantly taking yourself out to eat, going to the movies, traveling or whatnot? Because it could be a problem if you get with somebody who want to just sit home in front of the TV all the time. Not that there's anything wrong with it. That just may be their personality. But you, with a spouse or a partner, would you be happy with that?
Exactly.
This is why you find so many couples, to me, that get caught up in the thrill of having a man. I'm speaking of women. Yeah. Let's just say that having that partner, being in that committed relationship, they run into the altar because they're so in love with the fact that, oh, I finally got somebody. And then in a year or two, you find them thinking about divorce because they're like, this is not what I want.
Right.
I'm unhappy. Because we don't take that time to have those conversations. I'm a firm believer you should always have something to talk about. If you sitting on the phone for an hour and y'all don't have nothing to talk about,
Except sex.
yeah, and that
That's nothing to talk about.
that's nothing to talk. That's not hard to talk about.
If that's all y'all conversation is about sex, that is not a conversation.
Yeah, that's not a conversation.
That's not a conversation.
So set your standards. Know what you want. You know, and sometimes you got to spend that time with yourself. Ask yourself. And be honest. What are you willing to compromise on? And this is just not romantic relationships. This is something that you can do in friendships, with relatives, and you know, co-workers and all. Because I'm a protect your space. You know, and I'm a firm believer in it because it took me so many years and so many lessons to get to this. Well, I'm like, I ain't going back there. I'm gonna protect my energy as much as I can possibly can. You know, and if I see where you throwing me off balance, I have to give the goodbye. It's okay to say goodbye.
It is.
You know,
it's okay. Exactly. But so often people find it hard to cut relationships that are toxic to them. It doesn't mean that the person is bad. It just means they're not good for you. And a lot of times we can't separate behaviors from the person. Now, if that behavior is not conducive to what you want, it doesn't mean that person is a bad person. It just means their behavior is not conducive to your standard. And we can't separate the two. You are not, that person behavior doesn't make them a bad person. It just means for you and your standard, that's not conducive to what you want. For somebody else, that may be okay.
That may be okay.
That may be okay. And we have to really understand it. Say it's okay. Look, we cool, but you keep your distance. This is, I know where to place you on my chart of friends or associates. So I know how to handle you, and it's okay to do it. And with it's family, because sometimes it's family. Sometimes you have to say, look, I draw the line here.
Yeah,
this is draining me. This is costing too much for me. So you need to, like you said, you got to be able to keep. You have to be able to, one, know yourself, and get to a place where you're happy with yourself, what your triggers are, what your standards are. And when you find people that come into your life that disturb your peace, be okay with saying no. This is disturbing my peace. I can't deal with you on that level.
And I've with the standard things, I I've set my standards, so when I see stuff that's outside of my standards, and ladies, this is key. If you mention it to that person and they don't respond, or they don't open the door for dialogue about what you have expressed, go ahead and accept where they stand. Because if they're doing that, really they don't stand anywhere home. And if you find that partner or what you think is a partner does not stand anywhere on it, more than likely they're not the person for you. And the reason I say this is when it comes to standard, again, you say it's so hard. It is hard for us to let go of what we think is our all in all. This is my opportunity.
And I don't want to let that opportunity
go.
I
don't want to let that opportunity go. But again, it goes back to your self-esteem, because everything, your standards are going to tie into your self-esteem. So you got to be okay with being you. You got to be okay with, I may be alone for a while, or be okay being alone.
What's wrong with being alone?
Yeah, because single is not a curse. And single is not a curse.
And it doesn't mean alone doesn't mean lonely.
Yes, you can be alone, because you can be in a relationship and be lonely. You can be real lonely.
I was married and single.
You can be in a relationship and really be lonely. But start paying attention, because so many times we miss red flags because we're looking at a bigger picture that's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine there's a picture in a background. You know how they blur out the background of pictures and
Mm-hmm.
the object is right close. It's the
Yes.
only thing you see,
Yes.
and you're not able to see that. Sometimes we're looking at that background and not realizing that it's distorted
Mm-hmm.
and accepting it for what it is at that point.
Yes.
So it's important to pay attention to things. If you find that you're addressing things with a man or your partner and they don't seem concerned about it,
Well, it's telling you something.
yeah,
That's a red flag.
that's a red flag, a major red
Mm-hmm.
flag.
A partner, you should be always concerned about what your partner is concerned about.
Yes, most definitely. Because in relationship, a part of the job is my job is to make sure you're good
Mm-hmm.
every day.
Yeah.
And their job should be the same.
Exactly.
And if we're doing that for each other,
Everybody's happy.
everybody's happy. But if you find yourself constantly making sure they good and what you're saying to them, it don't even faze them and they don't move on to the next conversation, maybe it's time for you to move right on out the door.
This is gonna cause some issues.
It's going to cause some issues because that's a communication problem. And in that communication problem, it also lets you know where you may stand with that person in that life.
Exactly.
You know, because I believe men are hunters and men are protectors and providers.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Definitely.
that's how they are designed. And if they're not doing any of that, yeah.
Wow.
But that's you know.
I think that's really good. Specific. Yeah. So yeah, I think we just really need to go back and reevaluate um, our standards and what we call our standards and what we're seeking for. Because so often I hear women say, "Men, they not this and they not that and they not this," and I just don't believe that's true. Now, it's some men that do some trifling things,
Mm-hmm.
but my dad shared something with me years ago, and it took me to become an adult because I was really upset with him when I was in high school, and he said this. I was like, "Well, that's just not fair." And he made this statement. He said, "If I got pregnant, that it was my fault." He said, "If you go off and you get pregnant, I'm gonna blame you." He said because he can't do anything to you that you don't allow him to do.
That's true.
And I just thought that it was so unfair until I became an adult. And then I realized what he told me was the truth. A man, a woman, a co-worker, whoever, can only do to you what you allow them to do. Period. Period.
Mm-hmm.
If you allow it, they did. They can do it. If you don't allow it, they cannot do it to you.
Mm-hmm.
But so often, like you said, Melody, it's red flags. We look over things because we want to have a boo, a bae, or we have this mindset, well, I want to get married. But just because you dating someone doesn't mean that's the person. Or we lower our standards because we're looking at superficial things. Or we're lonely and we just want to have someone. And that person treats you less than what you want to be treated because you allow them to. You allow them to.
And you wonder why you got a headache, you're aggravated, you know, you're not sleeping well.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things can be affected
Exactly.
by, and to me, is it really worth it? Because all of these things, you lack in sleep, you got a headache and all that, it puts a toll on your body, your health wise.
Yes. Can I share a story?
Go ahead.
No,
It really does.
Because when I was dating somebody, and wrong person, wrong reason. You know what I'm saying? Wrong person, wrong reason. And I allowed some things because it was a wrong motive, wrong reason, looking at the wrong things, and I saw red flags, but I ignored it until I had to really come to myself and say, you know what, you BSing, basically, you BSing, and I know I'm better than that. I don't care what you have, what you look like, what you think, what you saying. I had to be like, I can be your friend, and then really not your friend, your associate. But I had to learn how to keep my distance because it was affecting my life. It was affecting my life. And so often we can get sucked in so quickly because we desire certain things. I desire at that time when I just started desiring a husband again. That's something different. But at that time, I'm human. You know what I'm saying? So I had like, okay, I'm looking, is this the person? Is this the person? Is this the person? And they were not, because I overlooked the major signs, the major standards that I look for in a person. And I let my guard down because I was in a desperate hunt. Listen, a desperate hunt for a mate, when the word says what? He that finds a wife, not she that finds a husband. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I was in such a desperate hunt that I lowered my standards, and I overlooked all the red flags until I had to, like Melody said, look, go back to self-esteem. I had to come to myself and say, nope, not doing this, not doing this, not doing this. Because sometimes being scared to not be in a relationship, people rather be in what they say, have a piece of a man than no man. I don't want a piece of anything. I want a whole.
Because you're going to have a piece with no piece.
Can you say that again? Yes.
You're going to have a piece with no piece.
With no piece.
Because you ain't going to be able to sleep, because you're going to be worried about what he doing, where he at. You're going to be somewhere people trying to find out, trying to slip phones, trying to do drive-by. You'll have a piece with no piece.
And that's not even necessary.
Yeah.
No.
That's not a way to live.
No.
Because if you living that way now, him putting a ring on and going to the altar, you may have a wife title, but he still gonna do what he do.
And I know so many women.
Yeah, he gonna still do what he gonna do.
Yeah. Because you agreed to it.
Yeah, you agreed to it.
If he's being unfaithful while you're dating and you decide to get married, he's gonna be unfaithful and married. Oh, yeah. He's telling you how he's gonna be if he's but does that make his bad behavior make him a bad person? No.
You just accepted it.
You just accepted it. Yeah, it doesn't make him a bad person. You just decided to accept it.
Yeah. You accepted it. So with that, and that's where you have to hold yourself accountable.
Look, I'm gonna get up. Somebody put something on there. Yeah, somebody said yes. Hey, Angela. Look, I don't have I got my glasses on, but I can't see that far.
Yeah, you have to hold yourself accountable with it. And really, standards, I can't say it enough, it all goes back to your self-esteem. Self-esteem. Not anybody else, but self-esteem. And, and when you have your standards and you find yourself interacting with a person, dating or whatnot, you have room for conversation. Because then you're able to have those conversations that you really need to have. How are the finances, because if you're dating with a purpose. Yeah. Now, you have some people that are okay with just dating and don't want marriage, So then, some of these conversations because you know what you want. Yeah. But if you are dating with a purpose, you have those conversations. What are the finances going to look like when we get married, Ask them questions. You better ask those questions.
Do you have to pay half?
Yeah. That's a roommate.
Roommates pay half.
That's a roommate.
Roommates pay half. I'm sorry.
Roommate gonna get me in another room doing me.
Yeah.
Because that's a roommate.
That's roommates pay half.
That's a roommate.
If he or she, if you get married and he's living on his own, he has he's established, and he expects you to get married, and you take over half of his bills, he wants a roommate. I'm sorry.
And in the long run, you can be just that, a roommate. Because let's say you get with a man, come on now, and he got that house, and you moving in his house, and you paying half the bill. Y'all better get talking about some wheels and what's on that paperwork. Because, we all know. We all heard of some things. And, we can even bring it home to, if you want to talk entertainment world, I read an article about DMX's fiance.
Yeah, definitely.
Not entitled to anything.
Because she's the fiance. She's not a wife.
So know where you stand. Because you could be somewhere building something, contributing to something, and
have no
you never know what may happen. You never know what can happen in life. And
you have no rights.
You don't have any rights to it. You could be building their business.
You have no rights.
You may be helping them get their home in order.
Have no rights.
You may be paying for his vehicles.
Have no rights.
Have no rights to it.
Have no rights.
I mean, at 40 and above, those are serious conversations. Because most of the time when you're dating at that point, at the age mark, you are pretty much established in life. You got, should be. You have some things that are established. Even down to if you get married, you need to know what's going on with 401ks and all.
Definitely.
Everything.
Health plans, all type of stuff. You need to know that.
Have those conversations. Know what it's going to look like in the marriage before you go to. I think even before you get engaged. Don't wait till when you go to the preacher to have your marriage counseling, because some preachers in their marriage counseling don't cover all of that. And then you get married.
And I would suggest you go to an outside counselor unless your pastor is a licensed counselor.
Yeah, because
or pastoral is a academically trained pastoral counselor.
It's okay to have a pastor and a therapist, or a pastor and a coach. Because a lot of people,
And then let me say this, because I don't want to offend anybody. Because you have some great pastors out there that are great examples of husbands and wives that can pastor you and can counsel you. But look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. That's true. That's a good point.
Let me say that, because I love my pastor. His wife.
Yeah.
And I think they're great examples.
And we could do a whole nother show on the mental health in the Black church.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So, but that's have those conversations, and again, I can't stress it enough. Those are the conversations you need to be having when you're on the phone, all hours, long hours. Those are the things you need to be talking about.
Yes.
More than that I want to rub you down and that
some things that's sustainability. Talk about how you're gonna handle the house if he has a house or you have a house.
Yes.
And y'all decide on getting married. Are you gonna keep your house? You gonna sell your house? Are y'all gonna buy a new house? You gonna do rental property? You gonna get the names changed, added to the deed? Those are things you want to talk about. Yeah. You want to talk about those things.
Yeah, you have to.
Yes, definitely.
You have to. It's very important.
Yes. If they have children and you have children, how are you gonna? If one or both of you pass? How are you gonna split those things up? What are you gonna do? Especially if you get married older.
Mm-hmm. Let me clarify something right quick, because if we have any male listeners, they're probably like, oh, they done lost it. They're 50-50. I'm not saying when we say 50-50 is roommate, and this is my personal belief. Now, I don't have a problem with paying some bills in the home.
Oh, definitely.
Some bills in the home. I don't have a problem with that. So, because a lot of men, if you say, no, I don't do the 50-50 thing, they'll think, oh, she wants somebody to take care of, but really you should be taking care of, But anyway, I believe in paying some bills. But when you put that 50-50 thing on it, to me, that's a roommate situation. Mm-hmm. I could go get a roommate, at that point.
Because if you're in a marriage, it may come to a point well, both of you have incomes coming in. Somebody's income may, you know, he may be paying all the bills, but something may happen where his income is not coming in, and then I may have to take you may have to take all your income to pay all the bills for a period of time. I think, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with
Nothing
that.
wrong with that. So that's not 50-50. That's 100%. You taking care of your husband.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's with all things being equal, but I'm not gonna go into a marriage like a roommate ship. Not doing that. Not a situation ship, but a roommate ship. I'm not doing that. Me,
and that's a standard that
that's
I have set. Now that made somebody else maybe not saying
they may be okay
wrong.
with that.
Somebody else may be okay with that.
They may be totally okay with
they
paying
totally okay with it.
And there's nothing wrong with it. You have to set your standards.
Set your standards. Yeah. They're based on what you believe, your value. So most definitely with that.
Yeah. Look, our time is just about up. We got some. Thanks for sharing, you guys. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing tonight. I'm trying to check 2 or 3 apps and look around and all these things. So it's a little hard tonight, So yes. Well, I think we're about wrapping it up.
Yeah. So, I think tonight's conversation was good. Yeah. So, ladies, spend some time this week and think about what your standards are. Because one of the things I found too, before we wrap it up right quick, Tara, I want to say this. If you are a woman and you keep running into the same type of man over and over, and you say, why I keep attracting this type of person? The problem is not so much the men at that point. You are the problem. You need to find out, what am I saying yes to that I should be saying no to?
What are you projecting?
Yeah. What am I projecting? What am I saying yes that I should be saying no to? What is causing me to accept the behaviors that I have accepted in the past? And why did they feel comfortable projecting those behaviors to me? You have to question yourself, and what you're putting out as well. So this week, take some time, and think about, what are your standards, and make that list, make that list of what your standards are, because only you can control your standards.
Exactly. For your intimate relationship, for work, for family, sometimes you have to draw the line. You have to protect your peace.
Yeah. Protect your space. Yeah. Your energy.
Yes. All right, you guys. This is Talk Therapy. I am Tara T. Stallings.
And I'm Melody Amani.
Make sure to join us every second and fourth Sunday at 7 p.m. on all our platforms. You can find me at Let's Talk Tara. You can find Melody
at Inspired by Melody on all platforms.
Yes, all platforms. So make sure you join us. Make sure you share. And next, we'll catch you guys. We'll see you guys the fourth Sunday, 7 p.m.
Y'all have a good one.
Have a good night.